Yeah, just basically here to answer some questions as well as announce the signing of our new coach, who is Dick Schroeder formerly of PEC Zwolle in the Dutch division. And other than that, just ready to answer some questions, really. So, not here to give you a speech or anything. So.
Vale. ¿Preguntas?
Primero, una primera impresión o un primer balance de lo que ha sido esta primera temporada al frente del Club Deportivo Castellón, en lo deportivo principalmente.
Yeah, of course. I think by any stretch, the first season was a success. Coming into the year, I think we had an objective to try to be in the promotion hunt, I would think, but it was pretty ambitious to expect us to be promoted in the first year. Keep in mind that we closed the deal of the team around July 20th. We were, I think, already in our preseason. And if you look at the roster when I took over the team versus the roster after I took over, there was massive turnover. So super pleased with how the season went. I think everyone would have said going into the season, you're going to be one game away from promotion. All you have to do is win it and you get promoted. We would be like, yes, sign me up for that. Obviously, we didn't win the game, so that's a little disappointing. But despite that disappointment, I think everyone should be very proud of what we've accomplished. And I certainly am very happy with how the season has turned out, for sure.
Alex, ¿por dar una pregunta? Vale. Juanfran, ¿alguna pregunta?
Hola, buenas tardes. Quería preguntarle por un poco un esbozo de lo que puede ser la próxima temporada, que le puede decir a los miles de aficionados, de fans, a los que ahora, la semana que viene, irán a renovar el carnet de abono. ¿Qué Castellón vamos a ver la temporada que viene? Porque realmente será el primer proyecto 100% suyo, ya que cuando llegó el año pasado, como acaba de decir, ya había mucho adelantado.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing I'll say is just maybe a little bit about my personal philosophy, maybe in sports as well as life. I don't think I'm the type of person that plays it safe and hopes to get lucky, which is kind of how I think our season was this year. Certainly our last two games, we played it safe and, in my opinion, was just hoping to get lucky, and that's not my philosophy. So with this new coaching hire, new managerial hire, we are going to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more offensive oriented, certainly a lot more attacking and pressing, which is something that I think is very exciting to watch and also gives us the chance to maximize the talent on our roster. So I would say to the fans that be prepared for a very different brand of football that will be a lot more exciting, a lot more offensive minded, and also a lot more tactically sound. And also I think because this is really the first manager that I've been able to take a lot of time and hire and build with, I think there'll be more of an alignment in the players that we have signed and will sign and the style of play we play that suits the manager. I think that will be the one thing I will say. So overall it will be a much more successful season in that regard. And I would be shocked if we weren't the highest scoring team or one of the highest scoring teams in the league.
Laura, ¿alguna pregunta?
Sí. Yo quería preguntarle a Bob cómo valora el trabajo de la dirección deportiva. Por los 5 fichajes que hubieron en invierno, parece que solo 2 han funcionado como deberían.
Yeah, I think these questions are interesting to me because I hear them a lot, and I think people don't realize that the difference between the winter window and the summer window in terms of who's making the decisions, there was no difference whatsoever. Every signing we made in the summer was either selected by myself and my team that I work with, or who are still here, or was approved. And so, if someone sends you a list of 25 players that they recommend, and one of them happens to be also on your list, and you sign that player, who takes credit for that player? So there's no difference between our approach in the summer and our approach now, and anyone who will tell you otherwise is just doing so for their own personal benefit and gain. So that's the first thing I'll say. The other thing I'll say is I think the winter signings, evaluating them, first of all, it's much easier to integrate into a team when you are signed in the summer versus changing teams in the winter. So we had 5 new players come in the winter, some of which were signed strictly for backup purposes. Bass was signed to back up Salva, who had constant injury issues, and so we needed him as a backup. Borja also was intended as a backup because we were short at center back. And then the other 2 signings, in terms of Fuentes and Suero and Jesus de Miguel, we signed Suero and Jesus de Miguel with the intention that they would play together. They played 183 minutes together as a tandem. We scored 4 goals during that time period, so 2 goals per 90 minutes, which by my estimation is pretty good. Unfortunately, our coach wanted to go a different way, or not unfortunately, but he decided he wanted to go a different way in terms of who to play, and so we never got a chance to actually see our signings play together. And again, the approach we had was to be very, very cautious and try to win games 1-0 or 0-0 in the first game and hope that we get lucky, and that's just not the approach that I ascribe to. So that's one of the reasons I would think that we made the coaching change, was to be more offensive minded and to utilize the players that we have a little bit differently than we did. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but you're free to ask a follow-up if you like.
Hi Bob, Mark from live on Twitch for Vuelta 22.
I'm gonna try to speak in English.
Okay, I appreciate
Después
that.
la hago en castellano también. My question for you is that if you can advance if there will be more departures in the next couple of days, in the next coming days.
In terms of players, or?
Yeah, in terms of players.
We have players under contract, and we have some players who are not under contract, and so there are some players who we will try to re-sign, and there's some, welcome. There's some players that we will take a closer look at. Look, I'm always trying to improve the roster, and so we were at a bit of a disadvantage in that we had to plan for both La Liga 2 and Primera without knowing which league we were going to be in. So now we have some clarity, and so we're going to make decisions on how we can best improve the roster with in mind the current coach that we have. So some may go, some may stay. I don't really know. I can answer that question definitively.
Hola, buenas. Acaba de anunciar la contratación del nuevo entrenador porque el señor Rueda, porque un entrenador de un fútbol aparentemente bastante diferente al que se practica aquí.
What do you mean by the one we play here?
No, perdón, no escucha. Bueno, yo considero que esta categoría es una categoría de federación bastante complicada, en la que el equipo, sobre todo fuera de casa, ha tenido números, yo creo que un tanto flojos. Se puede encontrar con un fútbol diferente al que se practica en los Países Bajos, que es mucho más alegre, mucho más ofensivo, cuando aquí hay muchos equipos que practican lo que es el sistema defensivo, el encerrarse en castar en su casa, con campos en los que tampoco están en muy buenas condiciones, como ha podido comprobar este año, por ejemplo, en el COE, en el Goyano. Por eso pregunto esas dudas que pueda generar el hecho de contratar a un entrenador. Ya digo que en un fútbol, en un estadio es mucho mejor, en un fútbol es mucho mejor, por eso la cuestión.
First question I would ask you is, have you watched much Dutch second division football?
No.
Okay, so
Primera división, sí.
okay, so you're telling me that the quality of play is much different in a different league than it is here, without having watched the other league. So it seems like maybe you're guessing, or maybe you have an opinion on it. Look, I think you bring up a good point. I think It is different, of course, but this idea that the third division of Spain is so complicated that you need a third division from Spain coach to manage the intricacies, to me is something that I don't agree with. And so I think there are different parts of the world that play a different style of football, and I think it can be an advantage to play a completely different style of football. As I said before earlier, if everybody is playing the exact same defensive style, then the game comes down to luck more than it should. And I'm not someone who closes my eyes and hopes I get lucky. I want skill. I want to take my edge and apply it as much as possible to have the best possible result. And I think this coach does that. I think he's a highly skilled tactician, first of all. He plays a style of football that resonates with me as well as the people I work with. In addition to that, he plays a similar style of play that most successful coaches in Europe play. You know, Spain is one of the few places where people are playing this very, very defensive style. And so, yeah, the pitch quality at Alcoyano and a couple other places is not great, but that doesn't mean we're forced to play the exact same style in those situations. We can always adapt. If the weather's bad, you can adapt and you must adapt. So I don't see why that's any different. The weather in Holland is not great during the winter, just FYI, and they don't seem to have much difficulty playing an aggressive style over there in that type of weather. So I guess one of the fun things about running your own project is you get to make your own decisions and see how they turn out. And I think that I believe in this. I believe in the trainer. I believe in our approach, and I'm sure we'll have success with it. Does that answer your question, or do you want to follow up?
Bob, la elección del nuevo entrenador se había decidido antes de que acabara la temporada.
Yes. In fact, we we talked to him in January when we made the previous hire, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to do a deal then, partially because he wanted to achieve promotion with his team, I think, partially because maybe he wasn't sure about us, partially because we thought it would be too drastic a culture shock to bring in an entirely non-native speaking coach in the middle of a season when we were pretty close to promotion. So I basically played it safe, and that's something that I probably have a little bit of regret with, and I've resolved myself to make sure that I don't play it safe going forward. And so now we've decided that we have an entire training camp, entire off season to really prepare properly. And I think that, win or lose, we were going to make the coaching change, and that's not to disparage Albert in any way, because I think Albert is a fantastic coach who will probably have success in the future. I just think for the type of level that we want to achieve, we need someone who is just in a little bit of a different category. And I feel like we have that with this new coach.
Bob, yo quería preguntarte también por tema más de relaciones con el ayuntamiento. Ha habido cambio de gobierno. En su programa electoral llevaban la reforma de Castalia. No sé si has podido ya hablar con ellos o habéis tenido algún tipo de acercamiento para hablar sobre esa reforma.
Yeah, not a lot of time, to be honest. I've met with the mayoress. She sat next to me during the game our last game versus Alcorcon, and she seems to be a big fan of the team, which is very positive. Obviously, we would love to have a great relationship with them, and I do think that the financial commitment I'm making to the project and the level of professionalism we're bringing, I think it would be great if that was matched by the city council and the mayoress, but we're still very early in that.
Yeah, Bob, for Twitch channel, for Talentos, we have one question about the improvements in Castalia. Will improvements be made in Castalia this summer? What type of improvements gonna be?
I don't know, I'm not in charge of construction at Castalia, it's not my stadium. I don't know, I don't think this summer, I'm not sure. We haven't gotten to the point where we have had negotiations or discussions or any type of, we're just building the relationship, which is a very good relationship so far, but we haven't come to any sort of understanding of what will happen yet. So.
preguntas?
Bob, después de esta primera temporada, que bueno, ya reconociste que era difícil ascender en esta primera temporada a segunda división, pero viendo la dificultad y viendo la competitividad del nivel que hay en primera federación, ¿mantienes ese objetivo de ascender a primera división en 5 o 6 años?
Just to be clear, the goal was not to get promoted out of Primera in 5 to 6 years. It was to get to the very, very top league in Spain in 5 to 6 years. And so, yes, that's still the goal. I think, if anything, I think this season was a testament to our approach in selecting players. And, you know, there's a lot of, I think we do things a little bit differently. And I think it's an honest assessment of how we played. Most honest people would say that we didn't have maybe the best tactics or the best strategy. But I think the quality of players that we had was quite high, and I think that's a testament to the people that are still here making the decisions on the players. And so I think that is a competitive advantage for us, this idea of data that everyone has a disparaging notion of, I think for us is a huge advantage. And I think it'll continue to be, and we'll continue to get better and understand the league a little bit more. And so yeah, I think that we fully expect to be in the same situation I was last year, where we said, 2 years to get out of this league, 2 years to get out of the next league. That was kind of our goal, and I don't see why we would say now it's worse than that now. I feel like if anything, we're ahead of schedule.
También quería preguntarte sobre el mercado, si tenéis intención de que continúe Voulgaris y qué posiciones son las prioritarias de cara a los fichajes que tenéis que hacer.
Right. We didn't have the option of keeping Voulgaris here. We don't own his rights. He was on loan from another team. They recalled him. I would love to have 11 players like Georgie, to be perfectly honest, because of the level of professionalism, effort, energy, all those things that he brings. But we didn't have the option of keeping him. We asked. They said they wanted to recall him. To be perfectly frank, he deserves to be playing at perhaps in a higher level and to see how he competes in a higher level. And so we wish him all the best in that regard. As far as positional signings that we need, I think that we'd still like to get some quality at striker. And then we're looking at all other positions. Obviously, we need some goalkeepers as well, because we only have one under contract. And then we need some under 23 players as well, because we only have a couple of those. So that's kind of where our focus is at. And we'll look at every position, whether people are under contract or not, and see if we can improve. And if we can, we'll make the effort to improve.
Bueno, antes ha hablado del choque cultural. No sé si el choque cultural, respetando las entidades fiscales, si ha notado alguna mayor dificultad a la hora de implantar sus metodologías y sus ideas en este primer año, si eso ha supuesto algún freno a sus aspiraciones, a sus ambiciones.
No, I think if anything, I mentioned the cultural shock in integrating a coach in January in the middle of the season who didn't speak the language and came from a different league. And so I think it's a little bit more of a patient approach doing it in the off season versus doing it mid-season. As far as me, I think I'm the culture shock, to be perfectly honest. I think the people have been very accommodating and understanding of my lack of Spanish, and they've been very warm and welcoming, and so it's on me to improve and get better and integrate myself. I think everyone on my team, Dave, Robin, they've done a job of trying to integrate themselves into the community. I think everyone has been accepted very, very well. And so aside from our first manager, where there was a big difficulty because he spoke Spanish and not English, and we didn't speak Spanish and only spoke English. And there was also just some cultural and I think style of working environment differences. There hasn't been any cultural differences at all. I think everyone's been very welcoming, and it's our job, I think, to do a better job of integrating ourselves into the culture a little bit more, and we'll do that, I'm sure.
Of the pitch, I think you're looking to hire an analyst, a physio, and nutritionist. How is this process going, and if this is a main objective in your renovation of the club?
Yeah, I think everything that we're doing is to try to bring a level of professionalism to this club that maybe wasn't there prior. Not to say that people that work here weren't professional, I just simply want to increase the level to La Liga 2 or La Liga level right away, so that we don't have a big adjustment when we get there. And so, to be honest, I'm not in charge of that. That's not my department. That's Dave's department, and I trust Dave explicitly. And I think that all of the changes that we've made and are making, I think, are with the future in mind, and I'm sure we'll fill those positions. You know, the great thing is we're getting hundreds of applications for every position we post from highly qualified people. People are really excited about the project. They want to come here and work, and so we've been able to attract the very best in class, and I think that our goal is to continue improving as much as possible, as well as increasing the level of the existing people we have and educating and improving them so that they can continue going forward at a higher level.
Bob, una pregunta sobre la composición del grupo para la próxima temporada, con equipos andaluces, equipos diferentes a los que había esta temporada en muchos casos. ¿Cómo ves las perspectivas del equipo? ¿Crees que va a ser un grupo más difícil? ¿Que le va a costar más al Castellón conseguir el objetivo? ¿O no va a tener ninguna incidencia en las metas del club?
Yeah, I think look, both groups are tough. I think on the other side, you have one very, very strong historic club in Deportivo La Corona and some other really, really strong clubs. I think we've got Malaga and Ibiza, who are both relegated, who should be very, very strong clubs. We still have Murcia and some other clubs, Cordoba, that are good. I think it's a tough club. I think it's a tough group, but I think that if we do a good job this summer and work hard and are able to play the way we want to play, I think we'll have some success. So the one issue I have with the group is just how much travel we have to do. I think we've got like 4 4-hour flights or something like that, and that's going to be challenging and something we'll have to take a look at. But I don't know, it's not supposed to be easy, so.
Bob, acabo yo haciendo la última pregunta. ¿Va a continuar el club este próximo mercado de verano fichando con la política a base de datos, de análisis?
Yeah, of course. I think that's basically our approach. It's always been our approach since I've been here in July, is to not make exclusively data decisions, but it's a massive part of our approach. And I think that we are going to continue to lean into that. And like I said before, every player that's been signed since I took over the club, July 20th, and that has stuck around because we got rid of some, has been signed with our approach in mind. So that's not going to change. If anything, we'll probably become more aggressive with it now that we have a better, I would say, unity between managerial style and our preferred style. So it'll be a lot more seamless in that regard.